Hi everybody and welcome to episode 2 of the Visto vlog where myself and Andreas Vargas prep to bring him to Canada. Andreas, how you doing today?
Hey Josh, good morning.
Good morning.
Chapter
Chapter 2.
Chapter 2, man.
Yeah. So if you haven't watched chapter 1, I highly recommend it, but basically what we're going to be doing here is documenting the process where a few months ago Visto hired Andreas as our first technical hire, and now we're in the process of bringing him to Canada, and so we want to document it from start to finish, both from my perspective, the employer, and Andreas's perspective, the employee, to hopefully show you guys more of what it's like from both perspectives. Andreas, how's your last week been? How are things progressing? You getting excited?
Yes, the last week was great. We are finishing the QA in the application we had, and will be the next week something one or two features I need to finish in the back end.
Yeah, so
that's hard working will be my next week.
Yeah,
okay.
At the same time, while we're doing all this stuff, so what Visto does, which we should probably do a better job of promoting, is we're in the process of launching a platform that will help Canadian companies connect with foreign developers, and we're automating the immigration process that we're going to go through right now with Andreas. So outside of these videos, we're hard at work, hopefully launching within the next week or so. So we'll keep everybody updated there. For any companies that might be interested in hiring foreign talent, please feel free to reach out. And for any developers that are abroad looking to come to Canada, like Andreas, please check out the website Visto.ai. We have a whole flow. It's totally free where you can sign up and learn more about the process. So let's jump into chapter 2, Andreas. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about picking the right work permit program and the requirements. We'll review them together, and then we'll give each other some homework at the end of this episode so we know what documents I have to go get ready, what documents you have to go get ready, and then in next week in chapter 3 we will talk about what the process was like of gathering all the documents, review all the documents, and actually get them ready to start submitting. So Andreas, do you want to quickly, just 30,000 foot view, what were the two programs that we were talking about in your case? Because in your case, and in many cases, there might be more than one work permit application that's an option. So maybe talk about how you found out about them and what your thoughts are, and then we can go into more detail.
Okay. Damn, I don't have study for that, George. Okay, it's a joke. It's a joke.
I put you on the spot.
Yes, for my case, okay, I'm a software engineer. Okay, I have studied on an university. I have a bachelor in computer science, and I have a master's degree in computer science too. So I have a professional study, we can say. Okay, so obviously, the Canadian government have the GTS stream program. Okay, the GTS is for technical persons in the IT area, no? But there are on something else. There are the CUSMA free trade with what Canada have with Mexico. The CUSMA trade is called CUSMA for the Canadians, and in Mexico it's called NAFTA. Okay. Sorry, TMEC. In Mexico, we call it TMEC.
It used to be NAFTA, yeah, formerly NAFTA.
Yes, even the six. Yes. Well, I'm Mexican. I have the facility in the part number 3 of the CUSMA. I'm a professional. I can apply for a work permit without an LMI requirement for me. Yeah. And that is a good advantage because we don't have to fill an LMI. Very different in the GTS program. What I have built that is complete solution to bring every software developer using the GTS, because they're applied to everybody. I can apply for both, but I think if you agree or think different, or what you concerned about these different approaches.
Yeah, so let's talk about the difference a little bit, and I'm going to share my screen here so we can actually review both. I guess, Andreas, you can't see my screen right now, but I have the program open for what's called the Global Talent Stream, so what Andres referred to as GTS. This is a very popular program that allows Canadian companies to bring tech workers into the country. So as Andreas mentioned, this can apply to anybody. You can be living anywhere in the world. If you are a legitimate Canadian company and you're bringing one of, I believe it's 12 or 13 occupations into the country. So as you can see on my screen here now, I'm hovering down at the 12 occupations. So we have computer and info systems managers, computer engineers, mathematicians, statisticians, info system analysts, database analysts, software engineers, web developers, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're working in kind of one of the core traditional tech talent occupations, there's a very high chance you can qualify under GTS. And what Andreas was saying is, we're launching an application solution that actually automates the process. So if you are a Canadian company, you're looking to bring tech talent into Canada, then let us know, because we have a platform that can automate just this. Now, GTS is broken down into 2 steps. And what Andreas was saying is that first step is for a company to apply for what's called an LMIA, a Labor Market Impact Assessment. Once that is approved, and that is expedited under the Global Talent Stream, so for tech workers, the government expedites it. Once that's approved, we can then apply for a work permit to Immigration Canada on behalf of the talent. Now, in some cases, like in Andreas's, there are other work permit programs that can go even maybe a little bit quicker and a little bit easier. So in this case, what I'm pulling up now is the program that Andreas was referring to, called CUSMA. So this is the Canada-United States-Mexico Agreement, formerly known to most people as NAFTA. And what this allows us to do is, you can file work permit applications for certain people who might be eligible and not have to submit that LMIA, the Labor Market Impact Assessment. So Andreas, thankfully, falls under the second category here on my screen, which is professionals. So we can see there's 4 categories of CUSMA. Business visitors, so these are more for shorter visits that might meet the different appendix requirements. Professionals, so this is a list of people that might have certain training and education. As Andreas mentioned, he happens to have an engineering degree, a bachelor's and a master's degree. So that qualifies him as an engineer. That's the profession that he falls under in this case. Intra-company transferees, so this is if you have a branch outside Canada, maybe you have an employee that's been working there for 1 year or longer, you can actually be exempt from an LMIA if they've been working for a subsidiary or parent or affiliate corporation in a different country and transfer them into a Canadian entity, or traders and investors. In this case, we're going to focus on the professionals category. And I'll quickly mention, Andreas, because you talked about kind of comparing the two, right? So it's an important distinction here where companies will have to make a decision ultimately of, if someone who I'm looking to hire falls under CUSMA and GTS like you did, which one to choose, right? And this is something that a company like ours can help you make the decision of. But ultimately, because you are as we can see here, a Mexican citizen, so in this case CUSMA applies to Canadian, US, or Mexican citizens, we decided to go with CUSMA because while the GTS program is very good, it's for tech workers, it's expedited, the LMIA is expedited, and then the work permit is eligible for expedited processing. If the candidate is a US or Mexican citizen, we can skip the LMIA and go right to the work permit application. Why is that good? Number one, it's one less step, right? It's one application just for the work permit as opposed to the LMIA, then the work permit. Secondly, as part of the LMIA, there's an additional fee and there's additional company requirements, right? So if we can save a few dollars, save a few requirements on the company side, why not, right? So, yeah, any thoughts on that, Andres?
Yes, I want to say we taking the advantages of the citizenship, of my citizenship,
Citizenship, yeah.
Thank you, man. Thank you, man. Yes. For example, there are a lot of other free trades there for other countries like Chile, like Colombia, like Peru. Yes, they are LMA exceptions too. So we are taking, like you said, the advantages of being Mexican. So we can go for it, no?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up on screen. I should have pulled this up before. I'll have to find a link, or I'll put a link in the description of the video of other countries that have similar treaties to Canada, as you mentioned. I think Chile, Peru, Colombia, there might be a couple more, maybe France. I can't remember. We'll find a link and we'll put it in the description of the video. And the reason this is important is if you're a company, it might help to look for workers in these treaty countries because it's a little bit easier to bring them here on work permits, right? Even if they're not in those treaty companies, we can certainly help using GTS, thankfully. But also, if you're a citizen in those countries, you can promote that to companies that you're trying to get a job in, right? So as a Mexican citizen, Andreas can come, if he was looking for jobs in Canada, he could say, hey, I'd like to work for you in Canada. Did you know of this treaty called CUSMA? It's easier to sponsor me, right? Now, luckily, I already knew that, right? Because we work in the immigration space. But Andreas knows about as well as anybody that what you have to do as an employee who's looking for a job in Canada is to try and educate the employer, right, Andreas? So that they know that there are easier options for them to sponsor you, right?
Right. When I was applying for the jobs, in the minimum requirements is on a cover letter and a resume. And the cover letter, yes, I added that you mentioned. I added in my cover letters, I have added, look, employer, I'm a Mexican. I can apply for the CUSMA trade for you, and I LMEI exception, and I get a very easy way to get a work permit. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's a good technique. Sometimes, depending on the company, ignore or will take advantage of that kind of information. Okay?
Absolutely, it definitely doesn't hurt, right? It doesn't guarantee you'll get a job, but it doesn't hurt to add in. By the way, there's this program we can take advantage of. So let's go through the requirements. So GTS will just quickly say the beauty of GTS is if you're a Canadian company. You're trying to hire a tech worker, there's a 95% chance that you're eligible. It's very streamlined, especially in the eligibility portion. If you're a company looking to leverage that program to hire foreign tech workers, please reach out. This is the platform that we're building to make the process extremely easy.
And automated.
And automated. On the CUSMA side, let's quickly go over the requirements, and then Andreas and I are going to quickly review the document requirements. And we'll divvy them up so that, I'll be responsible, obviously, for the company documents. Andreas will be responsible for his work permit documents. And then we can wrap up Chapter 2 there. And in Chapter 3, the next video, we can actually go through the documents, talk about what it was like, what was easy, what was hard, do a review. So in terms of CUSMA itself, we're going to focus on the third category for professionals. And Andreas, what we see here is, so citizenship of U.S. or Mexico, check. Profession identified in Appendix 2 of CUSMA. So in your case, you meet the engineering profession. And what you'll find is we'll put the link to this website in the description. If you scroll down to the bottom, I'm not going to scroll down right now because I don't want to lose my spot. But if you scroll down to Appendix 2, you'll find a list of all the professions and the requirements to meet them. So we've reviewed the engineering profession that Andreas meets because of his degrees, which is awesome. qualification to work in that profession, so a degree or certification, which Andreas meets because he has the bachelor's and master's degree. Prearranged employment with a Canadian employer, in this case that's us. Provision of professional level services in the field, as indicated in the appendix. We'll talk about this when we go over the document requirements. Compliance with existing immigration requirements for temporary entry. So that's kind of standard as any work permit application. So let's talk about, here we go. What documentation must a professional present to support an application? Do you want to start this off, Andres? Do you have it pulled up in front of you?
No, I don't have it. Well, yes,
okay,
documentation we provide the following information. No,
must prevent the following. So
the proposed employer in Canada. Okay, and we need to show Visto.
I was under 3.4. What documentation must a professional present to support an application? And so the first one is proof of American or Mexican citizenship. So in your case, probably a passport. So that's going to be a document that Andreas will have to prep, right? A copy of a passport. Confirmation of prearranged employment. So this is obviously going to come from myself and Visto. So a signed contract with a Canadian enterprise, evidence of an offer of an employment, or a letter from an American or Mexican employer. Okay, so that one won't apply. In our case, it'll probably just be a signed contract, right? We'll have a Canadian, we already have a contract signed because you've been working for us remotely in Mexico. But what we'll do is I will prepare and send you a Canadian employment letter. Let me write this down actually on my to-do list. A Canadian employment letter. And we'll get that e-signed as part of the application. Documentation which provides the following information: the proposed employer in Canada, the profession for which entry is sought, details of the position, and the education credentials. So this may be what we'll do is either a letter and or, so the proposed employer in Canada, that's us, right? Maybe we'll write you a confirmation of employment letter. The profession for which entry is sought, in your case we'll mention engineer. Details of the position, so this will be something like a job description, right? What we'll probably do is maybe as a Schedule A or something to your employment agreement is we'll have the job description, right? So in your case, senior software engineer with the duties, duration, etc., etc. The education qualifications or alternative credentials. So this would be, in your case, a copy of bachelor degree, diploma, copy of master's degree, diploma, right?
Right, translated.
Translated, and we can mention that as well in our, I'll put confirmation of, so we're going to have the employment agreement and confirmation of employment letter. And the reason why I say both here is a traditional employment agreement might not cover some of these details that I'm highlighting on the screen here. And the other thing I'll say as someone who's submitted probably close to 200 work permits now is it never hurts to over provide documentation, right? So if one of your documents might not cover some small details mentioned here, provide an extra document, right, or two to make sure everything is more than covered. Evidence that the person has at least the minimum education requirements and alternative credentials listed in Appendix 2. So here, this is on your end, Andreas, copies of degrees, diplomas, professional licenses, accreditation, or registration. So that should be pretty straightforward, right? And maybe, Andreas, do you want to talk about the translation requirements?
Yes, the translation requirements. Well, I have researched about it. Well, you need to certificate that translation by a certificate person. For example, in Mexico, we have a professional to do that, who is a special person who works for the government. It's called perito traductor in Spanish. Okay, it's like translator certificated by the government, who had to translate your documentation. At the end, you send the documentation to this person, and this person will be a little mock of your degrees. In my case, I have translated my bachelor right now, and he had a paper with a little mock of the position of the things, okay? And in that mock, they translate the text in that position, and then it marked with a
like a seal.
Yes, with a seal
or a stamp. Yes,
that translation, okay?
Right.
And I gave you to you. So I have the translation physically paper and my bachelor original in paper too.
Right.
So I have scanned it and I was ready for use in the CUSMA.
Yeah, so the reason why Andreas had to do that is because if you have any documentation, supporting documentation you're including in an immigration application, if that document is not in English or French, it has to be professionally translated to English or French. So that doesn't mean that your uncle's sister can just write a translation, right? You actually have to bring it to somebody who's a certified translator, and the title really differs by country. But they basically need to be a certified translator, sometimes called like a notary, or the titles kind of differ by province.
Yes, and depending on the country, for example, the translation certificated by the government in Mexico, that position or that position that didn't exist, for example, in Colombia. Okay,
right.
In Colombia is only a certificated translation. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, so we have a couple of companies that we work with as well. So if there's anybody that needs assistance with this, we have companies that will do this over the internet, right? So instead of having to go into an office, you can send them a document by email, by PDF, and they will actually certify, translate it, and send you back the PDF and the hard copy as well. So that you know for sure that it will be accepted by Immigration Canada. Okay, so I'm going to skip the next part here because it's basically just talking about the proper employer-employee relationship, which we meet pretty easily, right? We're a Canadian corporation based in Ontario, and so I'm not too worried about that, or like the control of ownership. This talks about renewals. This talks about self-employment. A professional must be entering Canada to provide professional level services in the field of qualification. So in this case, you're coming to work as a software engineer, so we're not too worried about that. The duties the professional intends to practice, okay, very similar. Minimum education requirements you've met.
At the end, you only need to provide a Canadian employer are asking for you in the point of entry of Canada.
Yeah,
at
so
the end, it's in simple words. You have to prove you are the correct person to fill that position that the employer needs.
Yeah, this is another reason why something like CUSMA is so great, because these requirements are actually easier than I even remembered, right? It's effectively, like you're saying, prove the Canadian company exists and wants to hire you, prove that they're hiring you for the profession that you fall under, prove that you're eligible under that profession, right? Right. What we'll probably come up with, Andreas, is we'll flesh out the list as well, and then we can see here is Appendix 2, so you can see the list of professionals. Accountant, architect, computer systems analyst, blah, blah, blah. Here's engineer. So a bachelor's, or I don't even know what this means, baccalaureate or licentiature degree. I don't even know what that means, but I'm assuming it means like a bachelor, some form of bachelor degree, or state provincial license. So in your case, you actually have 2 degrees, which is good. So to kind of summarize, Andreas, yeah, go ahead.
The licenciatura degree, licenciatura is the same of bachelor.
Okay, got it.
Licenciatura degree and baccalaureate, I think I don't know, baccalaureate, but licenciatura degree is on a bachelor degree. You have to study for more than 4 years in a university. Okay.
Right. I'm trying to find out the formal definition here. Anyways, so what we'll do is, so to kind of summarize, what we're going to be prepping, and we'll kind of summarize and wrap up here because I think this has been a good review, is, so Andreas, what you're going to work on is copying the basic documents like your passport, professionally translating your degrees. Of course, you're going to have to fill out the work permit form itself, right? So IMM 1295. And the other thing that's not mentioned here that I would say that we should be including is reference letters. So I don't even know if you and I have talked about this, but I think it would be a good thing if you can get either reference letters or proof of your previous employment, right? So things like reference letters and resume. I don't know if you had already thought about that or started preparing that, but I don't think that would hurt. Yeah? Okay.
I have two reference letters from my old employee and reference letter for the person who paid me, because in Mexico I was working in the mode of outsourcing.
Right.
The person who worked directly is not the person who paid you. So I have the reference for my employee and for the outsourcing. Okay?
Got it. Yep,
So
that's a good idea. I think any time an application is asking for proof of meeting a certain profession or proof of some sort of work, it's always great to include copies of education, copies of reference letters, not copies, you can just scan reference letters, and a resume as well. So that's great. On my end, I'm going to be prepping this week an employment letter, or employment agreement between Visto and between Andreas for our Canadian employment, so the terms and conditions of Canadian employment. I'm also going to prepare a confirmation of employment letter. So this is a letter that we'll put on Visto letterhead that will say we're confirming we want Andreas in Canada. Here's what the role is. Here are the duties and responsibilities, etc. Making it clear that we'd like him in Canada and then he meets the requirements of CUSMA. Anything that we missed, Andreas?
Yes, one thing, big, one big thing. When I learn about the CUSMA, I have a lot of doubts. And when I have a lawyer in front of me, I can ask him a lot of things. The first thing is the CUSMA didn't mention about the open work permit for your spouse. That is included, Josh?
Yeah, so what they don't mention on this page is it looks like they're talking about kind of like the core eligibility requirements. What they're not really covering is the actual work permit documentation that you have to prepare and submit, right? So for example, they don't mention the work permit form, right? Like you have to fill out IMM 1295. You probably,
that was my second question.
Yeah, you probably also have to fill out IMM 5707, the family information form. So the next thing that we probably have to do here is go to download the work permit requirements for someone applying from Mexico. So if you Google Canada work permit requirements, it'll take you to an IRCC page or a Canada.ca page where you can select what country you're applying from, and it will tell you what documents are required for that application. Obviously, they're a little bit different based on the program you're applying for, but it'll tell you 1295, 5707, etc., etc. The other thing that you want to keep in mind is, it's a little interesting in your scenario, Andreas, because number one, generally speaking, as part of any work permit, closed work permit application, right? In this case, we're submitting a closed work permit application, which means you are coming to Canada to work for one company that's named on the application. What that allows for is your spouse and children to be included in the application. So your spouse can come under what's called a spousal open work permit, right? SOWP. And your children can come on a permit. It kind of differs depending on how old they are. So typically if they're 5 and younger, they'll just get a visitor visa that allows them to come to Canada, and they can actually study in Canada. They just don't need a study permit at that age. If they're 6 or older, they'll come on a study permit that will allow them to start studying in Canada. So it looks like on the CUSMA page itself, And this is why we're building Visto, right? To make all of this easy and automated, because it can be confusing on the government website. They don't really tell you all of the core IRCC work permit requirements and forms that you have to fill out. We kind of summarize it all in one place. But you're going to want to complete the forms. The last factor, Andreas, that's also going to answer part of your question that we haven't talked about is through CUSMA, you can apply at a port of entry, right? So in most cases, especially if you're not coming under a treaty, you actually have to prepare your application and submit it online to Immigration Canada, and then you wait for a decision, and when they give you a decision, and hopefully it's an approval, you can then travel to Canada. In your case, you can apply as you enter into the country. So you can get on a plane, or let's say you're in the US, you can get in the car and drive to customs, to the Canadian border, and submit the application right there, and they will process it right there. So in your case, if you're going to apply at the port of entry, and maybe this is the last topic we quickly talk about, I think we discussed and you said that you do want to, if you're coming to Canada alone, I don't believe you can apply for your spouse and kids at that moment because they're not there with you, right? But what you can do is you come to Canada alone, you apply at the port of entry, you get your closed work permit, and then either with your closed work permit, we can submit an application online for your spouse and kids, or when they're ready to travel, they can then apply at the port of entry based on your closed work permit having already been approved. That's something we actually haven't chatted about yet. Do you have any thoughts or questions on that part?
No, but yes, right now, not. Right now, not. Right now, not.
So what we'll probably do is normally if we were going through GTS or if we were applying online, we can submit all those applications together. Andreas, the main applicant, and the spouse and kids. Because you're most likely applying at the port of entry, we can prepare all of the applications, but you're going to go to the port of entry with just your documents. You will apply for your permit, and then like I said, either they can apply after or we can apply online. I usually recommend, there's obviously a bit of a risk applying at the port of entry, right? Because if you hop on a flight, you land in Toronto, and then you go to customs to apply and they reject you, you have to get on a plane and go back home, right?
And go back home.
Yeah. But if you prepare everything properly, you should be okay, right? I never make any promises because there's always, for whatever reason, a chance that you could get rejected.
Yes,
but I think we both are on the same page that you probably will be applying at the port of entry, right? And the main reason is speed. If you submit the application online, it's probably going to take at least a couple weeks. If you apply at the port of entry, it could take an hour or two, right? Depending on how quickly they're moving. So are you thinking of port of entry, Andreas?
Good question. Because we can bring to my family in one shot. Everybody goes to Canada, or can go first myself, and then my family has arrived. But the difference is how many baggage will carry. Your wife will carry the baggage of the kids. That's a very different question. We don't have discussed internally with my family.
Right.
I don't know what we can discuss, and we can in the vlog show how it will be the way. No?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, right? I would say it might still be worth doing the way we had discussed, like you come first, because if you have enough family in Mexico that can at least help them get to the airport and help them check the baggage, then we can meet them at the airport, right?
Yes.
It still might be a little hectic, and it might be tough for your wife for a couple hours, but
yes.
We'll talk about that.
For example, we have already doing a little test. Okay, I select my clothes, what I bring to Canada, and I create a little baggage, and I see the baggage is very big.
Yeah.
When I start thinking, oh my God, it's very heavy and big. It will carry for myself. Well, it's good, but 3 baggage like that. for other persons, my wife will be carrying it.
Yeah.
We'll be a mess.
She's gonna have to start training.
Thinking very different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, need to start trading.
Okay, well, that's something we can talk about this week, and in chapter 3, maybe we'll talk about what we decide to do, right? In terms of, because that's a good kind of practical difficulty that could probably come up for a lot of people. So let's wrap it up there. So we talked about the 2 different programs we were considering, right? GTS or CUSMA. We went into a little bit of detail on GTS and a little bit more detail on CUSMA. The different documents we'll each be working on this week to prepare for next episode. And next week what we'll do is we'll come together with the documents prepped. We'll push them all together, do a review, make sure everything's looking good, and then we'll talk about prepping to make the trip over. And maybe as well we'll talk about what you end up deciding in terms of who's going to travel when, right, and how you're going to do it. Another option, like some people will just ship some of their stuff separately. It depends what country you're coming from, how expensive it is, how many bags. Like you could consider shipping some extra bags, separately. But anyways, that's something we'll talk about offline. And then in chapter 3, we'll talk about some good solutions that we've thought about that other people might find helpful. Makes sense?
Okay, makes sense.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to let us know on the video below. Make sure to like and share the video if you enjoyed it, and hopefully you'll tune in for Chapter 3. Andreas, any last words before we head out?
No. Happy Dia de la Marmota is like
Groundhog Day? Yeah.
Yeah. He announced a short winter and early spring.
That's good. That's good for us in Canada. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody again for tuning in, and we will see you in episode 3.
Bye-bye, Josh.
Bye-bye.